You and 3% of players gave Ruben a high five. Why did so few people give Ruben a high five? Hey folks, and welcome to part 4 of Minecraft Story Mode. Before we begin, can you believe this man predicted armor trims? As I was working on this, Mojang introduced this really cool new feature to the game where you can customize your armor by adding patterns to them. Genuinely an extremely cool feature, and a long overdue one in my opinion, especially as someone who's played Terraria and has seen like insane armor customization in a game like this before. For a game all about player expression, I always found it so strange how when it came to armor customization in Minecraft, there's no way to change the appearance of the best set in the game. So basically covering everybody's cool personalized skins were the same factory default light blue disjointed bulky plates, which then became even worse when those factory default bulky plates became like late 2000s gray. I love this change though, actually extremely cool. But below the tweet where they announced this, so many people, including myself, suddenly went, wait, does this mean you can make story mode style armors in the actual game now? Something I forgot to mention last time was, where were the shulkers? These are enemies that can only be found in the end, and I've probably never mentioned this in a video before, but the shulkers are actually my favorite Minecraft mob. I love their design, the items they drop you can craft into among the most useful items in the entire game, and I think how they interact with the player is infinitely creative. They don't melee you to death or shoot you with damaging projectiles, but instead fire these pellets that cause you to float upwards for a few seconds, after which you fall and can take fall damage. They try to kill you with fall damage, and fighting them can get really frantic as you try to juggle damaging them between landing in the safest way possible and disabling their wobbly shots so they can't stack this effect onto you. Fighting them feels like a puzzle, a battle based not just on who hits the hardest, as encounters with them also ask you to pay more attention to your surroundings, keep track of multiple facets at once, and heck, if you're really creative, you might even find ways to use their bizarre projectiles to your advantage. They don't appear in story mode for some reason, even though they come from the end, and I couldn't tell you why. Chapter 4 begins as of talking to Gabriel underneath the reawakened Witherstorm, and he's talking like he doesn't remember anything. Probably something we should worry about, but for right now, we just need to get out of here. And it looks like the fastest way will be to commandeer some horses, and then we enter the worst part of the game. Remember when I talked about how there was a specific action sequence where I would explain why I hate these things so much? We are here. This singular scene frustrated me to no end. Took me like a freaking half hour to do all on its own. Almost made me put the game down entirely, and even after I did complete it, it kind of tainted how I simply played the game from here forward. Let's dive in. So, not much special goes on in this scene from a story perspective. Our characters exchange some quips, we ride through some monsters. It controls pretty badly, but justifiably bad considering Jesse clearly has never ridden a horse before. You can bonk these enemies if they get in your way, but the range on when you can hit them feels a tad random. And I swear sometimes the prompt for it doesn't come at all, which can easily get you killed. Not a good start. We exchange some more lines. The second part has us weaving between tractor beams. The hitboxes on these are frustrating to say the least. I swear XCage runs straight through one of them here. It just feels very off. We also have to do some jumps, although you're given a lot of time for these. We exchange a couple more lines, the Enderman gets zipped up into the tractor beam, and then... Did you have enough time to register what just happened? Okay, so XCage Hail Marys this on their first try for some reason, but when I played this for the first time, I died here. And do you want to guess where you respawn from?
Come on, horses!
At the very beginning of this entire sequence. This entire sequence is about 4 minutes long, by the way. This might not sound that bad just saying it like that, but hear me out. The hardest part of this is when they throw the last section at you right at the end. It's when the storm directly attacks you with its tentacles, and it does so like 5 or 6 times in a row, all of which have extremely strict timings and have different button prompts to actually do them without dying. This part is about 3 minutes in, and if you fail just a single one of these, you have to do everything preceding this once more. Let's say you fail this 3 times. That's 9 minutes if you happen to replay this section. Die 6 times, that's suddenly pushing near 20. Now, I love hard games. Hell, I've played plenty of challenging encounters before where each attempt can take upwards to like 3 to 4 minutes. I've never gotten this emotional over a platformer before. I did it! Oh my god! Even before some sort of desperation attack, or the hardest part being right at the end. But the thing that makes this uniquely frustrating is that this is the exact identical 3-minute stretch, all for a chance at this final stretch with the tentacles. There's no way to optimize or experiment with your run. The section isn't even fun or engaging to begin with, you're just hitting QTEs. And I find 3 minutes is a perfect kind of length where you can legit forget this hard part is coming up and it just sneaks up on you, leading to another retry. Oh yeah, and on top of that, now this might be because I was playing the Switch version because I know Switch ports of stuff can be a little dumpy, but I swear there's input lag here too on top of all of this, so heck, sometimes even when you do hit the buttons correctly, you'll fail anyway. I eventually got annoyed enough with this that I actually tried looking into solutions. First, I wondered if maybe there's a way to skip cutscenes or sequences, which I know sounds like blasphemy in a game that's 99% story like this, but I figured maybe it might throw you some kind of bone here. Nothing helped. Nothing at all could be found. Then I looked into maybe if this game has accessibility or difficulty options. A game like this has got to have something to help with that, right? Maybe you could make the checkpointing more lenient, or there's a way to set all QTEs to 1 input, or like make the game pause when they come up, or disable them entirely. No, nothing there either. So if you just physically can't do these, I guess you're shit out of luck. I grew up in an era before the ability to skip cutscenes was kind of the norm in video games, and this entire sequence genuinely made me feel like I was right back there all over again, and really not in a good way. But here I'd argue it's even worse, because at least with something like, say, this battle from Arc the Lad Twilight of the Spirits that took me a million tries as a kid, or There's No Way You're Taking Kyrie's Heart, it's just a cutscene that you can just watch or mash through. You can go take a piss or check your emails while you wait for it to be over or something. Heck, I remember as a kid I would actually do homework in between these sections. But here, due to there being QTEs throughout the entire thing, it basically requires your full undivided attention at all times for every single time you retry this. You know what I eventually had to do to get through this without pulling my hair out? Pause buffering. When the camera was swinging in such a way that I felt a QTE was about to come up, I would start mashing the pause button until the button prompt appeared, and then I could mash that button as I unpaused. And this section frustrated me so much that this is something I continue to do for the rest of the game. Anytime someone pulled out a sword or the music would get intense or get ready to run, my hand would go directly to that pause button, just waiting, because at any moment I would then need to press something or else risk having to retry upwards of minutes of progress all over again. It actively made me loathe what should have been really fun, intense moments of the story, and was actively more immersion-breaking than any bad line read could ever be. God, I am happy to finally get that off my chest. I don't even want to talk about the scene anymore. It's revealed that Endermen can pick apart the Witherstorm. That's kind of all that happens here, and then we get out of here. That's all you need to know, so let's move on. We run to a cave and get to talk with Gabriel more. So what's going on with him is that being inside the storm for so long gave him some form of amnesia. Gotta say, this is surreal to see. In my playthrough, because I saved him way back in Chapter 1 as opposed to Petra, this was actually Petra who was trapped and then got amnesia for my own playthrough. It's kind of interesting to see choices made that early in the story still having huge impacts here.
That jacket! I recognize it!
Huh. It's funny how he recognizes a jacket, but not, like, the people he's known for years. The reason he brings this up is because apparently Lucas's gang survived, which makes him interested in wanting to go out to save them. I convinced him to stay and help us, if I remember correctly, and XCage does here as well. It kind of makes me wonder how the story would change if he left. Also, Petra isn't doing so well either. She doesn't have amnesia herself, but what the Wither did to her is getting worse. So much worse that it'll make her dialogue cut off in funny ways.
Still, I'm gonna do everything I can. Petra.
We mill about in this cave for a bit, talk to everyone and all that, catch up with people, get some lore. Eventually we go outside, have a heart-to-heart with Ruben until,
This isn't about the past, it's about the future.
Wait, that's Ivor's voice. Oh god, he's here. But he wants to help us now. You know, he is very clearly a villain, but in the back of my head playing this, I kind of felt for him a little bit here. If you remember from Chapter 1, he did have a plan to kill the Witherstorm before it got out of control. His intention was most likely to just scare Gabriel to make a point, as a form of revenge for something the Order did to him. But he didn't want to, like, kill everyone in the process, he just wanted to freak people out. I'm not defending the guy's actions here, obviously, but it's important to notice that this is an instance where we both technically have the same goal here, and it'd probably be best for us to, like, work together at this point. Case in point, he gives us some information here. He tells us that the command block powering the storm is actually coded to follow the amulet, which explains why it's been able to follow us wherever we go. That's some neat lore consistency. We also come up with a new plan. So, we saw the Endermen pick apart pieces of the storm. We theorized that if we could get enough Endermen close to it, of which there are plenty at Soren's fortress, we could take enough of it apart that it exposes the command block. And then Ivor adds that he has a secret lab that contains a special book that can be used to enchant a weapon that'll allow us to destroy it.
You figured all that out just now?
Okay then, so that's the goal for this chapter. We all join up and decide that Axel and Magnus will take the amulet and distract the Witherstorm until we can lure it to the fortress. And the rest of us will follow Ivor to this lab to get this book, which is allegedly very, very far away. Oh, I do not like how Ruben sits. That looks creepily uncanny, even by this game's standards.
Can we go any faster?
Not unless you have a minecart.
I really like the music in this sequence where you're traveling on horseback. You know, I haven't really mentioned this quite yet, but this game's music in general is quite good. A lot of it goes for a pretty generic action or atmospheric feel, but some of the more mysterious or adventurous songs really add to some of their respective scenes. Another song I like, but forgot to mention, was the one that played earlier when we were talking about Soren for the first time. I particularly like that one.
I don't even remember what it looks like up there.
Help me save the world.
How?
The Formidabomb.
God, we've been traveling for so long, though, that I just got to wonder just how far away this is.
Are we there yet?
Not much further now.
Are we there yet?
No, we are not there yet.
I mean, it's so far away that at this point I'm even tempted to make some kind of joke about the Farlands or something.
We cannot go to the Farlands. They're not just...
Wait a second.
You know, I think I've heard of the Farlands before.
They're actually going there. Oh god, this means I gotta explain the Farlands now. The Farlands are insane, and one of the coolest natural phenomenons in the entire history of this game, in my opinion. Basically, if you go far out into the world, and I mean like really obscenely far, at some point you'll eventually come across this. What this is the map that generates Minecraft terrain essentially glitching out and making this giant wall of broken geometry. The exact reason why it creates this, of all things, is extremely complicated and goes way over my head, and Sora even verbatim mentions a couple of the terms for it, which is kind of mind-blowing to see.
Purlin noise, floating points? These are not matters to be toyed with.
But it's just such an interesting thing that does happen, given you're playing an older version of the game. Yeah, this has since been patched, so you will never come across the Farlands in modern versions of the game, and in my opinion, they shouldn't have made that change. They should have kept this as a feature, because simply put, the amount of world you would need to explore to encounter this thing is simply more than one person could literally ever explore in one lifetime. Like, I'm not even kidding. if you're going to see the Farlands in a playthrough, that's going to be the theme of your entire playthrough, and it's going to be a long playthrough at that. It kind of falls into that category to me that it's the kind of thing you'll only ever see if you're actively looking for it. So I don't see much harm in it being in the game, as a strange Easter egg for really dedicated players. Hell, Ivor himself even puts my feelings towards it in a pretty good way.
Oh, please. The Farlands are a happy accident. Nature's way of keeping life interesting.
Now, I believe the Farlands were patched out after the point of this game came out, so this is yet again another deep cut, which, as usual, are incredibly cool to see. We decide to stop for a minute to find some food because, I mean, they have been traveling for this long.
A witch's hut.
Ivor jump scare. We encounter a witch. Okay, so I've mentioned how much I love how the mobs are animated in this. The witch are an exception. It just looks so stiff, and something about its throwing animation looks almost incorrect to me. Although it is cool to see something similar to a villager in this game. Villagers are a pretty big deal in Minecraft, but this is actually the only time we see anything close to one in story mode. Although I get the feeling that might change in Season 2, given one's pretty prominently featured on the cover. God, I really want to play that game. Ivor stays behind as we run off.
Hold on to your potatoes!
Hold on to your potatoes. I remember in my playthrough, I actually got Ivor to keep going with us, but I kind of forgot how I did that to happen, or how I made that happen. Whatever. Yep, that's the Farlands. God, it even looks pretty accurate. This is just weird to see. The only real not so accurate part I can find is that it's far taller than the normal Farlands, which is probably done on purpose to, like, make it look more epic, you know?
I'd feel better about this if Axel and Petra were here.
Actually, where is Petra? Did they really just leave her at that cave? When we enter the Farlands, is this... I don't think this is what the inside of the Farlands looks like. I don't think there's a maze inside of there. They kind of imply that Ivor built this with the command block, so I guess there's a reason for it. You know, one thing I wish they did more in this chapter is actually explore the Farlands more. In hindsight, the fact that you go there at all is more of a set piece than anything. They don't have to, like, climb it, and as you can see here, the second they enter it, it kind of just looks like some generic empty cave aside from these holes in the ceiling, which I think are a Farlands thing, although it's not really the kind of geometry I associate with them. Whatever. We're first on top of this maze, and, my god, this part sucks too. You just kind of walk. Like, this is just a maze you gotta walk through. It goes on for minutes on end, like nearly 10 minutes. It doesn't build tension, nothing really happens. One of the few things you can interact here is this unnoteworthy piece of floating land, and what happens when you do is that Jesse just looks at it and then shrugs, and then continues on with the maze. Actually, a pretty good synopsis for this entire area. This is pure filler and really boring. I have no clue why they decided to design it this way, outside of running out of ways to pad out runtime. Oh my god, we finally get somewhere. Oh, that's a flying machine. Jesse doesn't seem to recognize it though. Thankfully, our resident redstone expert catches up with us, and when she sees it...
It's some kind of flying barge.
Okay, so I was told that mob grinder is apparently a real term people use. Though you can't convince me that people call this thing a flying barge. What does barge even mean? That doesn't even look like one of those. It's a little broken, so Olivia has to help us rebuild it, and in all honesty, I really like this section. In fact, while I liked Olivia from the start, this was the moment that made her one of my favorite characters. She looks it over and thinks it's way too complicated for her, gets discouraged that she's not as smart as she thought she was, and then we have a heart-to-heart about how things are going. This motivates her to try again, and from here, she really gets the hang of how the mechanism works. Basically, Ivor just built it a little wrong, and we gotta fix it. I like this section a lot, not only because it's an instance of genuine character growth for her, but because it kind of captures that essence of redstone building I personally love so much. You see people make these incredible contraptions that look way too complicated and way out of your league, but then the second you actually try to pick them apart or find a genuine tutorial on them, it begins to make a lot more sense. Like, it just clicks, you know? It's almost realistic in a meta sort of way, if that makes sense. Also, I just think this is kind of funny too, just the audacity of them assuming the average player playing this game is going to know how a flying machine works. Just as we finish the thing, everyone else comes running in, and we take the machine over the chasm to Ivor's lab. Along the way, Gabriel talks as if he's getting parts of his memory back. We then look around for the enchanted book.
You're a good friend, Lucas. The fact that you're always thinking about others, it says a lot.
You know, this is a little off topic, but there's something I'd like to bring up. I don't know why, but before I got into trying this game, one thing I recall constantly hearing about it is that it had a particularly unlikable protagonist. Has anyone else noticed that? People seem to really not like Jesse. And call me crazy, having actually played it, I don't really see it. I mean, given he can be a little annoying and his line reads tend to be pretty sassy, I guess.
Hey, you almost said teamwork.
See, we're still funny. We can still get things done.
But he's not hateable or exhibits serious character flaws like I would expect for this kind of character. He can be an asshole if you want him to. I mean, most gameplay choices give you 4 options, and one more often than not just lets you say or do something horrible, but these instances are more a player choice than up to Jesse's own agency, so I find it hard to decide whether I should judge the character by default on them alone. Although, I have a bit of a theory as to why I might have gotten this impression going in. YouTubers. Quite a lot of Minecraft YouTubers, and heck, even people who don't necessarily cover Minecraft that often, played this for their channel when it released. And I'm not going to mince words here, a lot of them didn't take the game very seriously.
And she's gone. Alright, we're gonna let Lucas get killed, and then we break free.
This then led to many of them going for more joke answers than anything when prompted to react to something, as opposed to what they would genuinely do. Heck, I can admit I'm guilty of that in some of the games I play. It's kind of fun to be a jerk sometimes, you know? And a lot of these tend to make Jesse come off as needlessly mean. And given that some of these Let's Plays have millions of views, my theory is that this callous interpretation of Jesse sort of became what most people would think of when they talk about the character. When in reality, he can actually be quite nice and supportive. I don't know, I just don't see him as an unlikable protagonist, I guess. I see him more as a blank slate protagonist with a tad bit more personality than the average for that trope. And if you do think he's unlikable, well, I don't really know how to word this outside of saying that might be a you problem for consistently picking unlikable options for one reason or another. I don't know, I just kind of wanted to get that off my chest, I guess. We get separated along with Soren. Going a little further, we stumble across a museum of sorts. These are all treasures the Order has collected over the years. Soren can give us some lore on them, but we can also take them to solve a puzzle in the room.
Soren, is this the actual Ender Dragon egg? No way I'm leaving this behind.
Okay, I object. Just picks up a dragon egg. Dragon eggs teleport when you try to mine them for some reason in the actual game. I don't know why they do that, but it doesn't work like this in the game, you know? I don't know why they didn't make some sort of nod to that here. It's such an obvious mechanic of this item that it almost feels like an oversight.
Yes! Everything I needed was in your stories.
Nice work.
Whoa! What happened to the background there? Wait, that's an area we see a little bit later. I think the game just glitched and spoiled itself for some reason. The next room has another puzzle, and in order to solve this, you need to hear Soren's recollection of the battle with him and his friends against the Ender Dragon. Once we're done with that, however, there's the book. And, that's not all that's in here, though. Wait, you need to destroy those to kill an Ender Dragon. Why are they here? Soren drops quite a plot twist on us. That big heroic story he told wasn't exactly true. They did kill the Ender Dragon, but it wasn't with cunning or strength or planning, but instead with the command block. They essentially cheated and faked their hero story, hyped it up and lied for all these years. And this whole thing going on right now, Ivor's plan was to expose the Order for the fraud that it was, which, as we all know, got way out of hand.
To show you who the Order really are. Liars, cowards!
Sorry about punching you. You know, one thing I started to begin to wonder a lot at this point was where exactly did the command block come from? I don't recall if this is ever explained, but it's something I couldn't help but think about given how big a deal it's become in the story. Again, these things aren't meant to actually exist in the mode of Minecraft this world supposedly takes place in, so it's just something I'm very curious about now. Oh god, curves on an item looks so weird in this universe. Ivor takes us to a chamber where we can craft any type of tool we want, and then enchant it using the book. It looks quite cool. He then shows us 8 new armors, and I could be misremembering, but whatever you pick here will actually be what Jesse permanently wears for the rest of the game, so it's a pretty big deal. XCage doesn't show this, but Ivor can actually give you a little bit of lore on each one. They even all have funny names, which is cool. They picked the one that I think is called the Shield of Infinity. When I played this, I chose the Ender Defender, because I like the colors. And in the back of my head, I thought these might have gameplay changes. With a name like that, I thought it would help me against the Endermen we would no doubt run into later in this plan. Although, as it turns out, it didn't matter at all, because these armors are purely cosmetic from this point. We are ready to go. The next scene, we're back at Soren's house, and, okay, I have to ask, did they take the same route back? And did it take just as long as the trip to Ivor's lab? Remember, we traveled to the frickin' far lands, and I guess we just rode all the way back? How long did that take?
My name is Gabriel the Warrior.
Wait! God, I don't like this version of Gabriel. Like, I get the whole gimmick of the Order at this point is that they aren't as heroic as they claim they are, but this is just pathetic. Oh yeah, Axel and Olivia get new armors at this point too, and they're pretty badass. They're inspired by their heroes from the Order. At this point, we gotta piss off a bunch of Endermen so they'll attack the Witherstorm. My god. Okay, this sequence does get a little slapsticky, I'm not gonna lie. The Endermen pick enough away for us to make a contraption that allows us to blast ourselves inside. Once we're in, we're oh god, that is morbid. How did they let them get away with that? That is genuinely terrifying. This whole place is pretty scary. I like it a lot. Eventually, Jesse finds the block, hits it with his weapon, partially destroying it, while also angering the storm itself. And now for a pretty hard action sequence. You know, I will say, I feel like I'm enjoying these more now watching them as opposed to playing them. Remember that from here on out, I grew a habit of pause buffering through these, so I couldn't really appreciate them to their fullest until now. It's kind of cool to actually see these at the proper pacing the devs intended. Our ultimate gambit is to actually use one of its tractor beams to our advantage for once. Stab this head with the eye, get on top of the head, swing across the room onto another tentacle, drop the weapon, Ruben picks it back up and runs back up to us, falls into a pit himself. That's it, let's finish this. We did it, the storm falls apart, the Endermen zip away, and everything seems alright. Although, like last time, one of our friends didn't quite make it.
Come on, Ruben, say something.
I'm gonna be real, this scene is hard to take seriously. I once showed this scene to a friend without context, and her first immediate question was, why does the pig have a human face? Ruben is... Freaking heck, I am never ready for that. Ruben will be remembered! Why the pork chop? That feels like a gag you would see in something that's a parody of this game. I mean, pigs do drop those, but we've killed plenty of mobs before, and they've never dropped stuff like that. My god, they had to know, right? I have never seen a clip of someone playing this game for the first time who didn't laugh at that. I genuinely don't know how you're supposed to react to this besides being completely taken aback by how stupid that is, even by this game's standards. Fun fact, but the wiki for this game has a screenshot of this pork chop, and it's just called Corpse, and that is comedy gold in a morbid way I cannot explain, but I'm expecting you all to just understand. Okay, can we move on? I bet some of y'all were waiting for me to talk about that scene, weren't you? A week passes, and, oh, that is the framiest of frame rates. Oh, hey, there's Nora. I guess she does appear later. We give a bit of a victory speech here, and to commemorate defeating the storm once and for all. There's a borderline creepy part here where the subtitles say the crowd is chanting Jesse's name, but they're not. But anyway, we did it! Gabriel adorns us as a new order, a new generation of heroes, if you will. And we end on a freeze frame to be continued in Chapter 5. And while this may have seemed like a conclusion to the story, we're only about halfway done here. And in my opinion, the second half is, like, a lot better. Like, I love the second half of this game, but that will be something we'll have to cover next time. Thanks again to my Patreon supporters as always, Royal Blood, Sean, and Great Wolf, and I will see you folks later. Thanks for watching.